Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show us your support. And to make it a little bit more interesting, we're shooting for 100 subscribers on YouTube, so we'll be giving out random shout-outs to new subscribers as we try to reach our goal. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this loaded episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, episode number 59. And in this episode, there is so much craziness going on. It is WrestleMania weekend. All kinds of things have gone down in the last couple days. We're going to cover as many of those as we can, and I will tell you right now, if you're one of those people who looks for chronological order, you're not getting it here today. I'm going to give you everything I can from every news source I've found to try to keep you guys up to date on all the stories. Unfortunately, that means some of them are going to be out of order. I'm just saying. Today's big news is the return of Drew Galloway to the WWE branch of companies, as Drew Galloway has signed with NXT. This is a huge signing for NXT. I believe that the first time Drew Galloway was in the company, I don't think that they knew how to use him. I really don't. I think his talent level is off the charts. I think his potential for being a main draw is huge. But I think when they got into the situation where they had pushed him as Vince McMahon's chosen one, they didn't have long-term booking plans for him, and they really didn't know what to do with him after that point. So it really left him with little to do after he had his Intercontinental Championship run for a short period of time, and then they just got lost. And he ended up getting stuck in 3MB and doing a whole lot of nothing important, and it led to his early departure from WWE the first time, which in retrospect is probably a very good thing, because he was able to go out and really spread his wings, experience Evolve, WWN, What Culture, Pro Wrestling, hit some TNA, become TNA World Champion, go to all these different promotions around the world, and really establish himself as a legitimate draw. I don't care which one of those companies you've seen him wrestle for, all of them offered him an opportunity to be a prime star, and they all proved to be very successful. So congratulations to Drew Galloway returning to the WWE family by joining with NXT. And if you haven't had an opportunity, he has a great short, about 45-second promo out there where he announces his intentions to return and get the NXT Championship. That's the next step, he says, on his way in the World Wrestling Entertainment. And the beautiful thing about the NXT thing, I don't know if anybody saw NXT Takeover last night, but there are new championship belts across the board. I feel like it's almost like UFC inspired. All the belts look almost identical with a slight variation based on class. I almost said the weight class, but you know, the women's, the tag team, and the NXT Championship. The only thing that changes is the label at the top of the belt. Otherwise, relatively similar championships top to bottom from here on out. WWE Axxess, they had one of their cards where you can go. If you have never been to an Axxess event, you're really missing out. If you're a true wrestling fan, it is a really unique opportunity to get up close and personal with a lot of your favorite wrestlers. And at this week's Axxess, they had a few matches for you. Mustafa Ali and Rich Swann from the Cruiserweight division. This was really exciting because they got to wrestle against wrestlers from Progress Wrestling in the UK, the South Pacific Power Trip. Great match, back and forth. South Pacific Power Trip, I actually would hope that WWE took notice of these guys during this match, because they are phenomenal, and it would be nice to see them come into 205 Live and really spice up the 205 roster. I've said this in the past. I think that 205 Live, if you're going to make a real push to make it its own brand, or even close to that, you need to have Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships, and the South Pacific Power Trip would be a great opportunity to be the first champions of that division if they ever decide to do something like that. Keyshawn Raftar defeats Chris Atkins. TJ Perkins, who, again, if you look on YouTube, you can see he's got a video out there where he tours WrestleMania Axxess, just the merchandise section, so you can see the craziness that goes on there. He defeated Drew Gulak. Tony Storm defeated Ginny in a Progress women's match. Again, cross-promotion with Progress Wrestling. Brian Kendrick defeats Jack Gallagher in what can be described as a great back-and-forth, high-flying, but yet mat grappling style of match. Brian Kendrick, I know he's on the backside of his career, but even now, I think he's doing some of his best work. He's able to do all the high-flying stuff still to a degree, maybe not as good as he did back in the day, but he also combines a lot of psychology in what he does now, which is something that is almost a lost art form in the world of professional wrestling nowadays. So it's great to see him really just shining in the twilight of his career. And Akira Tozawa defeated Arya Daivari. So that was some of the WrestleMania Axxess matches. As many know, last night was Ring of Honor's Super Card of Honor 11, which was a huge card. You get to see all the stars of Ring of Honor in some of the best matches you'll ever see. Ring of Honor is notorious for putting on some of the best actual in-ring wrestling in the business. The match results: Marty Scurll defended the television championship successfully against Adam Cole. Silas Young and Beer City Bruiser defeated the Kingdom. Bully Ray and the Briscoes, the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champions, defeated the Gorillas of Destiny and Hangman Page. Jay Lethal and Cody Rhodes continued their back and forth feud, with Jay Lethal coming out as the victor in the Texas Bull Rope match. I actually expected Cody Rhodes to win that, and I was a little surprised. Since he's been on the independent circuit, I feel like he's taken more losses than wins, except for when he wrestles Kurt Angle. I don't know, it's a little strange to me. Bobby Fish defeats Silas Young by disqualification. Volador Jr. and Will Ospreay, which are somewhat of a really interesting tag team, defeat Dragon Lee and Jay White. The Ring of Honor World Champion, Christopher Daniels, defends his championship for the first time, and he successfully retains over Dalton Castle. And the Young Bucks defeat the Hardys to win the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. This ends the Hardys' relatively short but very important tag team reign. Of course, there's tons of us out there who are fully expecting that the Hardys are going to be making a return to WWE. And I'll be honest with you, it's very strange because in the last week, just in the last 7 days, we have seen the Hardy Boys talk about wanting to go to WWE. Then there was a big press release later in the week from Jeff Hardy, who specifically stated that their Ring of Honor contracts were throughout the summer. And then yesterday, the Hardys got together again and announced that they may be showing up sooner than later, and it may be WrestleMania, it may be Raw, it may be SmackDown. We don't know when it's going to be, but making it clear that there's going to be a return at some point, and it could be very soon. So whether or not they show up at WrestleMania is still anyone's guess. I would be, if I was a betting man, I would say I expect them to show up at WrestleMania, if not at Raw or SmackDown the week after. I really expect them to show up tonight at the ladders match for the Tag Team Championship of Raw. Now, my immediate reaction to that is I'm okay with them going to Raw and having the Raw Tag Team Championship because they are a premier attraction. However, when you have SmackDown's Tag Team division, it's pretty much toiling away to nothingness. I would much have preferred them to be on SmackDown just to add some legitimacy to that brand, unless you're planning on moving other teams from Raw to SmackDown when they do the draft and have people move around and switch up some of the roster spots. But either way, this is going to be exciting if the Hardys actually do make an appearance tonight at WrestleMania, which, as I said, most people in the industry are fully expecting to happen. Evolve 80 occurred over the other day. Drew Galloway making one of his final appearances for Evolve. Drew Galloway defeats Matt Riddle. Timothy Hatcher with Stokely Hathaway defeats Chris Dickinson. Leo Rush, who is rapidly becoming one of the top independent stars in the world, defeats Jason Kincaid and Jay Jacka. The Gatekeepers with Ethan Page defeat Facade and Michael Richard Blaze. And then Ethan Page with the Gatekeepers, they end up defeating Austin Theory. Ricochet defeats Keith Lee in the Evolve Tag Team Championship match. Catchpoint, Tracy Williams and Fred Yee. I like Fred Yee. I like the name. I just do. They defeat Michael Elgin and Donovan Dijak for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. They retain. And for the Evolve Championship, Zack Sabre Jr., the champion, defeats ACH in an absolute instant classic. What an awesome match. Zack Sabre Jr., one of the best wrestlers in the world. I love there's a picture online of him walking around with 3 championship belts on all at the same time. It's like, how many more belts can you put on the guy before he's literally covering his face? We move on to Evolve 81 the very next night. We've got Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Michael Elgin. Drew Galloway, again, one of his final appearances for Evolve, defeats Leo Rush. Keith Lee defeats Donovan Dijak. ACH defeats Timothy Hatcher with Stokely Hathaway. Catchpoint, Tracy Williams, Chris Dickinson, and Jacka defeat Jason Kincaid, Sammy Guevara, and Austin Theory. And then Fred Yee defeats Matt Riddle, which, if you ask me, that's a shock. I didn't expect Fred Yee to beat Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle's been pretty much untouchable lately, and he gets the win over Matt Riddle. And in an Anything Goes match, Darby Allin defeats Ethan Page with the Gatekeepers. A little tidbit on WWE Hall of Fame. I watched the show. I was very much impressed. I felt like Teddy Long's speech was just genuine from the heart, and then there were times where he seemed so self-involved and seemed like he was like, yeah, I deserve this kind of guy, which he does. Don't get me wrong. Every person out there deserves what they got, but seemed a little bit too self-indulgent. A little bit of that for me from Kurt Angle as well. But Kurt Angle, at least, he gave some reflection. It was really personal when he talked about, talking to the current talent and telling them to keep their head straight and do the right thing and adhere to policy and do what you're supposed to do. I actually appreciated Kurt Angle's speech. The Rock and Roll Express, that was like a glorified brag fest. You know, it's cool. I like hearing about it. I love some of the stories they tell about different people in the back. But I will tell you, probably for me personally, because he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, one of the moments of the night is hearing Ravishing Rick Rude's son cut a promo like his dad. That kid is huge. It's a shame that kid never made it into the business because he looks like a freaking monster. But moving on to what I thought was absolutely, without any question, the best speech of the night. And to many people's surprise, the one person who did not get enough appreciation heading into the Hall of Fame ceremony was Beth Phoenix. I thought her speech was easily, hands down, by far, not even a close competition, the best speech of the night. And I could listen to that speech over and over and over again. She did such a great job of acknowledging everyone who influenced her career, making sure she individually called out every person who mattered to her, and not just saying a name, but literally giving experiences that she had with those people that made her career what it was. And I thought that she was the most gracious person accepting in the entire program. So congratulations to all the Hall of Fame inductees, but specifically straight from me to Beth Phoenix, congratulations on being what an amazing talent, but such a classy individual and such an awesome speech. New Japan Pro Wrestling, they have announced meet and greets for July, as well as 2 shows where they're going to do their G1 Climax event here in the United States, and all events are sold out. And it's so popular that now there's discussion that night 1 of the G1 event in July might be broadcast live on Axxess TV with JR. Now that's kind of interesting to me because it sounds like JR may be calling a match tonight at WrestleMania, which will be awesome to see him back with the WWE family, even if it's for one night, just in light of recent events and everything. And my understanding is his deal to go to WrestleMania and call a match was booked long before the untimely passing of his wife, Jan. But it's awesome to see him back with WWE, but clearly he still has commitments with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I look forward to any time he's calling a match, and I really can't wait to see what New Japan puts together for their North American debut. WWN Super Show Mercury Rising 2017 kicked off this weekend as well, and one of the things that really is striking me about a lot of these programs that I'm reporting on is that if you took away all the money that WWE uses for pyrotechnics and specialized lighting and all these other things that give them the most aesthetically pleasing production value there is out there, if you get down to just the core, the actual product itself, get away from the promos, get away from all that stuff, just the product, a lot of these smaller, more independent companies really put on a show that is on par or better than the biggest show in the world. That being said, at this Mercury Rising 2017, Austin Theory takes on the Gatekeeper Blaster, takes on Jason Kincaid, takes on Keith Lee in this 4-way insane bout. After a Ground Zero Blaster, Keith Lee picks up the win. In a match for the Shine Championship, Lufisto, the champion, uses the Burning Hammer to defeat Tony Storm. All Ego Ethan Page uses a Spinning Dwayne to defeat Jimmy Havoc in an Evolve vs. Progress match. Doom Patrol, which is Chris Dickinson and Jaka, lose to South Pacific Power Trip, TK Cooper and Travis Banks. This is another one of those Evolve vs. Progress matches. The match ends with a super kick and an assisted DDT. It was announced after that match that Drew Galloway, who was scheduled to appear to compete for the WWN Championship, had suffered an injury and couldn't compete. Now, those of us who have the foresight to put these things together, obviously that's specifically done because he's now signed with NXT, but they did a good job of writing him off the show and then not featuring him the rest of the show. ACH went up against Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne of WWE UK tournament fame also is the Progress World Champion, and he was defending his Progress Championship against an Evolve star, and Pete Dunne retains. He uses the Regal Stretch at the end of the match to retain his championship. Mark Haskins falls to Zack Sabre Jr. in an Evolve World Championship match. This is another Evolve versus Progress match, but these two can tear the house down. I mean, Mark Haskins is another one WWE should have focused on for that UK tournament because he is phenomenal. And Zack Sabre Jr., there has to be a day sometime, hopefully sooner than later, that he goes to WWE. And really, I don't say that because WWE is better. I just got done saying how the matches you see at these independent shows are amazing. It's not about the quality of the matches. I think he'll have great matches anywhere. But for Zack Sabre Jr.'s sake, I think that he needs the media exposure of WWE just so he could cement his place in pro wrestling history, because he is absolutely off the charts. He's one of the best talents in the world, and the people who are diehard wrestling fans, people like you and I, we watch these independent shows and we get a chance to see him. But there are a lot of the mainstream kids would love this guy. This guy would be a merchandise fanatic, like much in a way TJ Perkins is for WWE. he should be out there on the biggest stage there is, showcasing his talent. And I hope at some point, sooner hopefully than later, he gets the opportunity to do that. And in the main event, Fred Yee versus John Davis versus Matt Riddle versus Paro versus Timothy Hatcher versus Hot Sauce Tracy Williams, and a WWN Championship Battle of the Champions elimination match. This match featured all of the top talents that WWN has to offer, and the ending sees the Bromission submission, Matt Riddle taking the win and the WWN Championship. And what a great representative of the WWN. Matt Riddle has just been all over the world in such a short period of time, making the transition from mixed martial arts to professional wrestling. He's been just so much of an ambassador to pro wrestling fans who are interested in UFC, and UFC fans who may want to dabble with professional wrestling. So congratulations go out to Matt Riddle and his win of the WWN Championship. Progress held an event in Orlando, seeing Jimmy Havoc fall to Zack Sabre Jr., James Drake over Rockstar Spud, Ginny over Tony Storm, and JML, which is comprised of Sami Callihan and Shane Strickland, falling again to the South Pacific Power Trip. TK Cooper and Travis Banks. South Pacific Power Trip just tearing it up in Orlando. Matt Riddle, the Progress Atlas Division champion, uses the Bromission submission again on Trent Seven of WWE UK tournament fame, to retain his championship. And one of the matches I was really looking forward to, Tyler Bate, the WWE United Kingdom champion, defends his championship successfully using the Tyler Driver 97 to defeat Mark Andrews. Mark Haskins appears on the show. He goes up against Pete Dunne for the Progress Championship. Pete Dunne again, he defeats Mark Haskins. I mean, Pete Dunne's been on a tear too. And what's interesting to me is if you go back to the UK tournament, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate were in the final. So on WWE programming, they hate each other. But when you go over to the UK in Progress or ICW, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne are tag team partners with Trent Seven. They're British strong style. Interesting how, I almost think WWE underestimates the intelligence of the smart marks out there like you and I, who know that these guys are aligned elsewhere and then feuding somewhere else. Shimmer presented Shimmer 91, where Cherry Bomb defeated Alex Windsor by pinfall, Britt Baker over Nevea, Samantha Heights, Vita Scott, all by pinfall with a schoolboy pin on Scott. Lufisto went over Leva Bates by pinfall. She hit her burning hammer for the win. Lenny Leonard interviews the Heart of Shimmer champion, Nicole Savoy, who brings out Shania Baszler, who's a member of her stable, who also invites out Mercedes Martinez. So you get the whole trifecta out there. And while they're out there, Mercedes Martinez is calling out Candice LeRae for later in the evening. It ends up having some back and forth banter, but we end up getting into our match. Shania Baszler goes over Santana Garrett by submission. She uses the Falcon Arrow and then turns it into a sleeper hold. Jessica Havoc goes over Cat Power by pinfall. She hits the Air Raid Crash. Nicole Matthews goes over Shotzi Blackheart by pin. She uses the Vancouver maneuver. Mount Tessa, which is a tag team comprised of Tessa Blanchard, daughter of Tully Blanchard, interviewee of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, and Vanessa Craven. They're the champions. They defeat Flying High, Kay Lee Ray and Mia Kim. There's a pinfall there. Tag title belt to the face from Tessa. I love it that she's playing the heel role just like her dad. So they retain the Shimmer Tag Team Championships. Dulce Garcia over Kellyanne by pinfall with the Three Amigos. And Mercedes Martinez, the Shimmer champion. She ends up successfully defending her championships against Candice LeRae by pinfall. She hits the Fisherman Buster to retain her championship. Solid match top to bottom. Shimmer well represented in WrestleMania week heading into the biggest show of the year. Joey Janela's Spring Break also held yesterday. The match card was phenomenal. It was really a stacked card for what many people consider to be a very low budget promotion. But in the show, Sami Callihan defeats Kyle the Beast. Andy Williams and Penelope Ford defeat Allie and Braxton Sutter for the GCW Championship Falls Count Anywhere match. Matt Tremont is successful in defending his championship against Eddie Kingston. I feel like Eddie Kingston's character over the last few years, he went from being what I consider to be a relatively big draw, has now become somewhat of a relegated mid-carder. It's just my opinion, a reflection on some of his matches. They have a match called the Spring Break Cluster match. I try to keep it clean here on the Pro Wrestling Podcast. And the match featured a whole host of people. Eric Cannon, Brian Idol, Crazy Boy, Dink, All Ego, Ethan Page, Facade, Glacier, Invisible Man, Jervis Cottonbelly, Jimmy Lloyd, John Silver, Travis Flip Gordon, Vita Scott, all competing in this crazy, all over the place match. It ends up seeing Jimmy Lloyd come out on top. You have Keith Lee fall to Lio Rush after a frog splash. Also an amazing match. Lio Rush and Keith Lee really can tear the house down in any promotion they wrestle for. And of course, in a match that was based around the namesake of the show, Joey Janela hits Sweet Chin Music on former Rocker member Marty Jannetty. I'm sure Shawn Michaels was watching from afar. Actually, he probably wasn't watching at all. Probably couldn't care less. But I'm trying to be positive here. You know, I'm sure if he was looking on, he would have been proud that Marty Jannetty can still get out there and mix it up with the young people. Joey Janela doing his best Shawn Michaels impersonation to end the match. And in the main event, the lightning hot Matt Riddle taking on a absolute legend in both the mixed martial arts and pro wrestling world, kind of the forerunner to somebody like Matt Riddle, Dan the Beast Severn. And they met in the main event, and seeing Matt Riddle come out on top with a Bromission submission. Great match. This whole card was actually relatively solid top to bottom. I think a lot of people expected it to be a joke, and instead it ended up being an action-packed pay-per-view that a lot of people were very happy with. So if you get a chance, check that thing out when it becomes available on YouTube. Some news on the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. They added various names, including Bing and Dane from NXT. So other people had to be pulled out of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which I don't understand. I would just leave everybody in there. It's not like this is like the Royal Rumble where you announce 30 people. There could be any number of people there. But they pulled out Titus O'Neil, Sin Cara, The Ascension, Kalisto, the Vaudevillains. All those people were all listed as being in the match previously, and now they're not. They're taken out of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. So I don't know if there's some purpose to that. I would leave them all in there. Or maybe they'll surprise us all and let them all be out there anyways, and they just don't want to say 30 or 32 or 35 man because they don't want to take anything away from the Royal Rumble. For those who didn't notice at the top of this podcast, I talked about Drew McIntyre signing with NXT. That became apparent because he was seated ringside for NXT Takeover in Orlando. So let's get into the NXT Takeover results. NXT Takeover was, as always, a phenomenal show. We got to see Sanity get the win over Team Dillinger, which had some drama to it because before the match, earlier in the day at Axxess, Sanity attacked No Way Jose, eliminating him from the match. So we didn't know who was going to team up with Ty Dillinger for his team. It ended up being Cassius Ohno, and despite all that, they still didn't come out on top. Sanity still taking the win. Aleister Black comes out and he debuts and he defeats Andrade Cien Almas. I guess this is a solid debut for a character we've been looking forward to seeing. I don't know why they got to change people's names. Just because he wrestled in the United Kingdom before as Tommy End, you don't have to change his name. Just leave it the way it is. He's already known around the world. Now, you actually hurt his opportunity because some people who don't know that he was Tommy End are not going to get behind him right away, whereas if you would just use the name Tommy End, people would have been all over him who were previous fans. The Authors of Pain win the three-way dance or the triple threat match for the tag team championship. They eliminate DIY first, and at the end of the match, after a super collider, they eliminate the Revival and retain, showing off their brand new NXT tag team championship belts. Asuka defeats Ember Moon in a really, really physical women's championship match. So Asuka retains with her new championship belt. The top rope tornado glorious DDT. Talk about a move. That's what Bobby Roode hits on Shinsuke Nakamura to retain the NXT championship, that new belt. One of the things they really played up in this match, and I think this was really smart booking, and I don't get to say that often about WWE product, but they booked it so that Shinsuke Nakamura, both in his title loss to Bobby Roode and in the rematch here at TakeOver Orlando, in both situations, Nakamura never was beaten just based on pure wrestling skill. Both times the knee became an issue, and with that happening, you keep Nakamura strong enough for his main roster debut, which many people are theorizing could be tonight, could be Monday Night Raw. More people are feeling that he's going to be debuting on SmackDown, which I think would be amazing because there's the opportunity for matches with the likes of Randy Orton, AJ Styles, Bray Wyatt, people who would really give him a great match, whereas on Raw, you have a lot more of the Roman Reigns factor. Shinsuke Nakamura is not going to be able to swim with Roman Reigns right now, if they keep Roman Reigns on Raw. Rumor is he's going to move to SmackDown also. I think that would be a terrible idea if you're putting Shinsuke Nakamura on SmackDown. I want to see Nakamura and AJ Styles. I don't want to see Nakamura and Roman Reigns. I just have no interest in that right now. I feel like Nakamura is worlds ahead of Roman Reigns as far as in-ring ability. So we're going to jump into our fantasy booking segment of this episode. We've been trying to get through this first round here. There's some people are loving it, some people aren't participating anymore. I'm hoping to get all you guys feedback and input. Today, matches 49 and 50. Taz, ECW World Champion, versus Davey Richards, former Ring of Honor World Champion. And in match 50, former ECW Champion Shane Douglas versus former Lucha Underground Champion Phoenix. We're going to give you two more. Why not? Let's go ahead and keep it going. The Sandman ECW World Champion versus Eddie Edwards, former Ring of Honor Champion, and Raven, former ECW Champion, versus Jack Swagger, the former World Heavyweight Champion in WWE. Give us in your YouTube comment section which people you'd have win those matches. We will tabulate your results and move them forward in the tournament, and we'll move on to our next couple matches in the next episode. But for now, that's all the time we have. Be sure to check back with us in episode 60, where we're going to run down the entire WrestleMania card, the results, what happened. We're expecting some big surprises. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all of our music and sound effects we use throughout today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. We encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you on your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsjsports.com/WWE for my latest articles on the world of pro wrestling. Until the WrestleMania episode, take care, everybody, and enjoy tonight's big pay-per-view, the Ultimate Thrill Ride, WrestleMania 33, live from Florida.